Good day. My name is Khangwelo Muronga, and I'm presenting together with my colleague Phindile Binda, and we are here to talk to you about digital solutions for public transport operations that we developed as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic for the Gauteng province. And before we start, I'll just give you a quick introduction. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in new Disaster Management Act that the President announced, and due to that, the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport contacted the CSIR, inquiring if we can assist them with any technological tools which can assist them with the response to the COVID-19 pandemic in public transport space. And we responded positively, and we are going to talk to you about what we developed, how we worked with it, and what benefits it actually gave to the province and our citizens. The contents of the presentation will go through the industry registration. We'll talk about the background of that, the collaborations that we had, and then the next one will be about the Lena transport, where we'll talk to you about the registration of Lena transport operators. We'll discuss verification of sticker and control numbers, and then how we identified members for compliance reporting. And on the minibus taxi industry, we'll talk about similarly the registration of cadets, verification of registered cadets, and how we identified members that are expected to give us compliance reporting. And later on, we'll give you the compliance and reporting discussions where we show you how we reported for the Lena transport, for the public transport facilities, mainly the minibus taxi, and then how all this data is consolidated into one database, which we use to do analysis. The first one will be the industry registrations. A quick background on that. On the 15th of March 2020, the national state of disaster due to COVID-19 outbreak was declared, and our transport operators in the public transport space were expected to load at least about 70% of their vehicles' registered capacity, meaning they were making less money, and we needed to respond to that. And the Gauteng Department of Transport wanted to delay the coronavirus spreading in the public transport system. And what they needed for that was that we can't do things manually anymore. We are in 2020. We need to have technological tools to assist with that. And we have about 3 things that we talked about or did during that process. One of them is what we call registering of Lena transport operators. And these are operators who transport our learners to various basic education schools. And the next one was to register the minibus taxi industry cadets. Cadets, we mean the colleagues who are assisting with disinfecting vehicles, sanitizing passengers, and making sure that each vehicle is loading according to the required capacity, which was 70% at that time. And later on, we had to focus on monitoring compliance and reporting. And all team leaders are required to report on this compliance. And the collaborations that we had when we were doing this project, firstly is the CSIR, and the class charts from the CSIR that were part of the project is the smart mobility and the defense and security. And our main client, which was the ones that actually contacted the CSIR, was the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport. And obviously working in the public transport space, especially the minibus taxis, you can't work without the councils or the taxi alliances. So we worked with the South African National Taxi Council, the Gauteng branch of Santaco, and then we worked with the National Taxi Alliance, the Gauteng branch of NTA. And also, as we were also doing work for the Lena transport, we had to include what we call the Gauteng Education Transport Services, abbreviated to GETS. And now I will talk about what is it that we did for the registrations of the Lena transport operators. And to register the Lena transport operators, we needed few information. And what I can say about this is that this taught us that we don't have enough data about our own operations when it comes to the public transport space. For example, we had to collect the biographical details of all public transport operators, especially in the Lena transport space, during the response to COVID-19. Whereas if we had this data before even the pandemic, the country would have been in a better state. Despite that, we did a good work. We collected the biographical details. And when we were doing that, we also verified the operating licenses. For any transport operator to transport learners, they need to have been awarded a license by government, and we checked those licenses. And we also invited our colleagues from the traffic department to actually check the roadworthiness of the vehicles that are being used to transport these learners. And after we have done that, each vehicle was awarded with a sticker. An example of the sticker, you can see it on my far right there. And every vehicle was given that sticker. But receiving a sticker, we need to make sure that the sticker comes with a control number. The control number is unique for every vehicle. And for us to do that, we made sure that we also track these control numbers. And also when the operators are on the road, they need to actually make sure the control number is visible so no one is allowed or was allowed to tamper with it. The tools that we used to do these registrations were not simple, but we achieved it. I think we developed this within one night, immediately after the MEC of Education announced that Gauteng schools are opening. We had to have every tool ready. And what the CSIR did, we developed a web form which we used to capture the biographical details. And then we invited all the operators to visit the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport regional offices for registrations. On my right, you can see the first screen mentioned number 1 or numbered 1. That is the screen that we use to register the learner transport operators. And then to get the sticker verification and make sure that every vehicle has the correct sticker, we developed an Android app, which is what you see on number 2, as an example of how it looked. And with that app, we were able to take photos of the sticker as it is sticked in the vehicle to make sure that it is in a visible area that the law enforcement colleagues will be able to identify when it's on the road. We continued to now verify who are going to be the members who will assist us with compliance reporting. And this, we contacted the industry themselves, who gave us what we call GETS, the Gauteng Education Transport Services colleagues. And we selected about 20 leaders from each region of Gauteng. And all these leaders were supposed to go to an area that we had to pre-select. So we chose a central area that is within a 5-kilometer radius of every school. And they need to send the vehicles there for disinfection. They need to make sure that the PPE stock is collected and it's enough. And these members, when we have identified them, they also had to come to the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport, regional centers for registrations. And after that, we trained all the leaders on how to use the compliance tools that we had developed. On the right, you can see an example of a compliance tool and just few questions there where someone has to give us the destination school that a particular transport operator and that particular vehicle, which we are tracking with the control number on the sticker, we need to know which school is going to. And they need to tell us if all the learners' hands were sanitized, if the vehicle was disinfected before actually boarding the learners, and if the hands of the learners are also being sanitized and they are wearing their masks. And they also need to give us the number of learners that they are transporting. And if they are complying with social distancing. All those questions were asked, and the operators that we had selected will respond. And you can see from the example that the passenger count there is 1. So even if you are just a parent who transports your own child to school, if you are doing that as a frequent work, we needed you to register first Otherwise, you needed to find your child a transport that is authorized and has a verification sticker and can be monitored to make sure that all the children in that school are kept safe. And after that, we moved to the minibus taxi industry to do the registrations as well. And this one took longer for us to do. We are talking about a very big industry here, but we needed to select cadets. As I explained, cadets are the colleagues from the industry themselves who were tasked with a job of making sure that all the COVID-19 regulations are being adhered to by the industry themselves. So what the CSIR did, we developed a web form which we used to capture the biographical details. All the cadets had to visit a Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport, and we selected a special place called Derek Masuk, which we used for registrations. And all cadets were required to come to the registration with their regional leaders and also with their taxi rank managers, and they needed to provide us with proof of identification. And we took the biographical details. I will show you photos of what I'm talking about. The first photo you can see there, it's a screen dump of how the form looked like when we were registering the members. And that's what CSIR developed. This took us about a week to finish developing so that we can respond quicker to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the next one that we used was the biometrics capturing. And for this, we had to develop a native app. By native app, I'm talking about a desktop-based app that can connect to our web servers. And we developed this to capture biometrics. And similarly, the same cadets that visited Derek Masuk for registration had to visit Derek Masuk for biometrics. Luckily, all that was done in one go, so you come once for both registration and biometrics taking. And you need to provide proof of identification before we can do anything. And what we took as biometrics was your right and left thumb fingerprint. We required a passport size photo of the cadet as well. And this is the screen of how our system looked like. As you can see from my top left there is a login. So even the CSIR users were required to log in into this system before they can take any biometrics. This obviously was for us to be able to respond or to adhere to the POPI Act and also be able to track who is doing what. And on the far right, you can see a picture of a fingerprint and a portrait photo. When a fingerprint is taken, that picture changes to green. And when a portrait is taken, that picture changes to green as well. That's telling us that we have saved the biometrics to the database, and the quality of the biometrics we took is equivalent to what Home Affairs is using to actually produce our national identification cards. And in the minibus taxi industry, obviously we can't just collect all this data. The main reason was we want them to do compliance as well. And we selected all taxi rank managers per region, making sure that they are the ones who are to report the compliance. Remember, with the Lena transport, we used the GETS colleagues, but with the minibus taxis, we used a taxi rank manager to manage their own taxi rank. And their main job was to make sure that they have enough PPE, and they have to make sure all vehicles are disinfected before they can start their daily routine. They need to check that the stock is available to actually sanitize the passengers, and they're to tell us the number of passengers that are passing through and the behavior of passengers. You might have seen on the news that some are loading 100%, and we know 100% in this industry means 120%. But our colleagues were there to make sure that the 70% is adhered to, and I'm happy to say it was adhered to. And we have proof of that. You can see on the results that from the industry, COVID-19 is not spreading from the public transport space as we actually expected. The spreading is somewhere else, I won't say where, but we have all visited some few clubs, even though it's lockdown time. And if you look on the right, there is a screen there showing you what is it that we mean when we say a compliance for the facilities. So the similar questions that we asked on the Lena transport. So we requested that we need to know if the disinfectant is sufficient. In other words, they have enough stock of the PPE. They needed to let us know if the loading capacity has been adhered to, and all passengers that are actually in that facility and using the public transport space are wearing masks and they are being sanitized. And actually we needed to also know how many queue marshals are there at that day. Queue marshals are those colleagues who assist passengers on which taxis to take and how many should be getting into that taxi. So our cadets made sure that they tell us how many queue marshals were working, and also if the vehicles were disinfected before and after transporting any group of passengers. And also you can see on our example there, we mentioned Oliver Northboch taxi rank. The app could tell us exactly the coordinates of where the taxi rank is and when the data is being collected. And we move to the compliance reporting. We developed an online tool to make sure that when they're reporting, we don't wait a day or two to get the results. The results came to the CSIR immediately, and the CSIR researchers and scientists will do the analysis of the data, and they created simple generic dashboards and reports that will be sent to the clients or various taxi rank managers for them to see how the operations are going. And also we are able to create any reports that anyone can generate based on the kind of attributes of the data that we collected. And an example of the system we're talking about, as you can see on that screen, any user of the system had to log in. We authenticate everyone for similar reasons that I mentioned in the beginning why we do authentication. So even this system required that. And every time when someone completes an event, meaning they've told us that in this taxi rank, this was their work for the day, it immediately appears on the left of the screen. You can see there's a list of items that were loaded. You are looking at in order, you're looking at City of Tshwane, you're looking at about Basa Primary School. It's just an example of what you will see. And on the top, you can see photos. So we required that when any event happens that required an attention from the department, a photo should be taken. And in the middle, you can see a photo of the map. So we wanted to track where exactly these events were happening. And this just shows you some of the graphical representation, the dashboards that we created and the map of that dashboard. And to achieve all this, for a later data analysis, the CSIR created a desktop reporting system, which we call Smart Mobility Database. And my colleague Phindile Binda will come and talk about it. Thank you.
Good day, my name is Phindile Binda, and I'm going to share with you our Smart Mobility Database system that we have in our Smart Mobility cluster in the CSIR. So this is how it looks here in the picture. We call it the Smart Mobility Database system because it is a consolidation of different data sets. You will see as I go through the kind of data sets we have on the system. Once you have the system, you would need to be authenticated to be able to use the system. And it is desktop based, which means that whatever that you are doing in the system, you need to have the files or the MDB files which you've got the data inside your machine. It is not web-based, it's only accessed in a desktop. So this system, it is solely developed by the developers in our Smart Mobility cluster. And it's in an ongoing process whereby now and then you get a new version, so it's in a progress whereby it's getting improved each and every day. So once you open our Smart Mobility Database system, this is the home page that you will land in, and it's got that visualization of the different data sets that we have there. And then on the side, you have a shortcuts of the different data sets that the system will offer you. The kinds of data set we have on our system, you will have Minibus taxi routes reporting database, whereby we've got routes, data about the routes of the taxis, which we have surveyed as the CSIR, and those that we've gotten from the Gauteng Departments of Roads and Transport from their databases. We're also going to go on a project whereby we're going to be surveying all the taxi facilities, which are our taxi ranks. And then as soon as we do that, that grayed out part for the facilities will now be blue as soon as we've got the data. And also on the taxi data, we're going to collect data again about all the taxi owners. So far we only have data about people who were working during the COVID-19, who were sanitizing the taxi rank managers, who were sanitizing the taxis. And then also we've got the rank feedback, which is our analysis on which taxi ranks were reporting in terms of sanitizing their vehicles and sanitizing the passengers at the various taxi ranks. And then we've got data about the Lena transport, whereby we have the operators of the vehicles which are transporting the learners, which are going to our schools. And also we're going to be collecting data about the people who are sanitizing those vehicles. And also their working environment in terms of where they park, maybe after dropping off the learners and waiting for them to come collect them on after school basis. And then we also have data about our buses, whereby we've got routes about different bus routes. And also we've got data about our household survey, which was launched about a week ago by the CSIR. This is the system that was used to analyze the data for the household. And the types of analysis and the reportings you get from the data look like this, whereby you can have graphs of the data. You can also have maps. So for instance, on our household data, these maps were helping us to say that from the sampled houses which were selected in the province, which ones have been surveyed yet and which ones have not been surveyed yet. So this tool was helping us to see that if it's green, we know that the survey has not taken place yet there. And then if it's blue, we know that the surveyors have already gotten there. And then you can also use the system for further analysis. Say for instance, there's already graphs and everything, but you feel that you want to do more. You have a chance to export Excels and then do more analysis on your data. And all this was made possible by the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport, the CSIR Smart Mobility, the CSIR Defense and Security. Thank you.